What I'll be doing instead is we'll be talking about some of the demographic differences that we're seeing between providers on a few slides. We do always have new features, and I think there's a booth set up somewhere that I'm happy to demo those features for you, and Jason's here as well. I'm sure he'll be happy to do a demo if anyone's interested. So since we have a lot of new faces in the audience that haven't been to a Knowledge Network Summit before, I'm actually going to talk about a few terms that I'll use frequently just to make sure everybody's on the same page. So the Knowledge Network, simple definition, where we are today, just a research collaborative of CMHCs and like-minded commercial interest across the country. 32 gigs. About 3+ years ago, the Knowledge Networks decided that they would create a shared research database that we'd refer to as the Knowledge Network Data Warehouse. We've created that database. We've had it for a little over 1.5 years now. And CRI learned a lot of things during the process. Probably the most important was organizations have to have time to put their data into a format and then send it in. If they're not getting anything for the formats or out of the research, from a business perspective, it's not really worth their while. So organizations say, yes, we'll contribute to a research data warehouse, but they never really prioritize that project up. So to grow the data store for research, what CRI thought it would do is create an analytics product, and we'd had a lot of experience within Centerstone in doing analytics and data warehousing for that company, and then sell that analytics product as a software as a service system. And basically what that means is there's one instance of it around the globe. Organizations in this space typically didn't have great access to reporting about their business functions. So when they sign on, they actually get business value directly out of the system. And we think we've created just a really wonderful system. The side effect is we also get the data co-located in one place so that on an opt-in basis, we can then use that increased store size for research purposes. The next thing we learned is a tiny nonprofit can't scale marketing as well as infrastructure across the nation. Luckily for us, we learned this early on, and we have a great partner in this endeavor who's here today and also sponsored a portion of the event. And NetSmart's really taking this well beyond the scale that CRI could have reached at this point. So those are the terms. Enlighten, a commercial BI product that we sell to CMHCs, Knowledge Network, Data Warehouse, what we've all collaboratively in this room gotten together and co-located our data for. So this slide is actually not a mistake. This is where we were 24 months ago. If you put a choropleth map up of all the data we collected, we would have nothing shared as a shared group. If you go to 6 months ago, and let me make sure and quote these right, 1 year ago, we had 9 submitting organizations and we had data from 8 states. Most of these organizations were actually a part of the Knowledge Network, not a part of the Enlighten product. That's really coming up alongside. Really great start. Highest density state here was actually Georgia. Flash forward to 6 months ago, and I actually presented this slide. We had increased our footprint by roughly 50% organization-wise, 14 partners in 11 states, and additional partners in Georgia. States added 6 months ago were Alabama, California, and Illinois. And then today, and this is largely due to kind of commercialization efforts from NetSmart, we have 31 partner organizations now. Most of those organizations are actually multi-site organizations, and we're across 16 states, and Georgia loses its top seed for having the highest provider density. And we welcome Florida now with our highest number of providers. So just a really fun 2 years, and I've been very happy to get to work on it. This is also a graphic that I typically present to show kind of the status or the health of the project. Out of the providers I just quoted, the 31, about half of them are actually not represented in the number I'm about to quote. We're still in the process of onboarding a great deal of them. Most of our acceleration has really happened about the last month and a half with signings. So if you think of populations, 2010 census, and then you scale the top 100 cities just by font size, you see in Light and Analytics, it's toward the left-hand side there. In orange, we've got a long ways to go to catch New York, but we've just recently crossed the 500,000 client received mark. So now we have 500,000 clients in the data store, which pushes us up to actually the 34th largest city proper, if you think of consumers as members of a fictitious city. One other number, and actually I should not have changed the slide there, so I'm going to go back. One other number I will quote, we're a hair under 30 million activity records in the data store, well over 29 million, and we have 3.7 million prescription records within what we've got going right now. So these next slides are actually specific to the knowledge network section. So there's kind of two sections. One's the broader Enlighten, and one's the knowledge network data warehouse. They actually share a common back-end system definition, so you can run queries on either set of partners, and it's not really an issue. Within the knowledge network data, we've got 380,000 clients total. That number's not on the screen, I'm aware. If you look at the clients that we also have diagnosis records, that number drops to 311. What these are is it's going to be a proportional Venn diagram, and we're going to talk about how the data steps down for research questions. So if you look at clients with outcomes, 245,000 total, not all of which are perfectly overlapping with clients with diagnoses. One thing that my team made sure that I would comment on is outcomes is still a problem. We're accepting a lot of outcomes and we've stored a lot of outcomes, but I know the research group is going to be talking about this today, or when we have our group breakout meetings. Everyone still has different outcomes. Their standardization is very difficult in that data set. So we're just representing the 245 as clients with any outcome. Clients with medications, 116,000. And then we have 89,000 clients that are kind of in the overlapping group of medications, diagnoses, and outcomes. Now here, if we go a bit further, and let me make sure I read the question actually correct. So clients with a primary diagnosis of ADHD who have been prescribed the medication and have NOMS records, within our data store, you'd still be looking at 6,519. That number's as of Monday within the data pool. So it drops significantly, but it's still a really large number when you ask specific questions like that to work with. The next several slides that I'm going to show is about really work that we're currently doing. They're non-final. As we clean up data, they're subject to change. It's really preliminary findings. We're hoping this year that we can actually have our first set of publications that we're going to submit for. So as you see these slides, we acknowledge that there's some of them are still work in progress and will be refined. We also acknowledge there's some bias in them. Part of that's based on demographics. Part of that's based on the payers that each organization has and the kind of the business model that they build around it. The bias there is actually what we're most interested in as a group coming from the last meeting. So we thought it would be worthwhile to talk through before we try to sort it out of the numbers. So the top of my slide is a bit cut off, but what this is primary diagnostic category changes. So if we look at new patients within the data store, and how we've defined new patients is this is patients who were seen for the first time in the data submitted 90 days after the first day, after the first day of data submitted by that organization. And then also their first primary diagnosis was in a major depressive disorder category. The blue bars represent them staying within the same category of diagnoses for their period of treatment. And we see kind of the highest is 88%, and then each of the bars represents different organizations. As we go down, we actually get into a lot of categorical changes. And by categorical changes, I'm not talking about a diagnosis has been minorly refined within a category. I mean, you're going from a mood disorder to a psychoticism primary disorder. We know that this happens, but this is the first time that we've actually shown a quantified slide of it. So percentage is the kind of the breakout of clients in a diagnostic category. Blue is they only had one. Red is it changed over the course of their treatment. And then the kind of the x-axis, you're going to see each organization is represented by one bar. Now, this slide I actually don't like very much, and we've got an animated slide at the end that I think does a better job of representing this. Each bar is still an organization. The divisions of the bars are actually the activity class durations, and it's the average duration for a client in that organization. The first thing that jumps out is the first two bars, the amount of services offered by those organizations are far beyond, so far beyond they actually mess up the scale for the remaining organizations. And it's just a wildly different service mix being offered. I think I dropped out a bit, but I will keep going. Can everyone still hear me? Okay. The breakdowns by activity class actually change a good deal as well. And again, this is average client in the same category, presenting with a major depressive disorder. There is one other change here, and I'm going to go back to this slide. If you were in the red group, that at some point during treatment we changed your primary diagnostic category, we threw you out for all the following slides. So it's just the blue group represented here. This slide is the same concept, but it's drastically simplified. So what we're looking at is we're looking at total durations for the average client, and then we're actually graphing that over time. So 0 time point is within the first 30 days, time point 1 is within the second 30 days, is the total amount of average services. What we found here that was potentially interesting, you kind of have that one service, or that one provider that's way out of scope, and then you kind of have 3 different groups, one towards the bottom and then one somewhat in the middle there, of similar durations on the services. And then the last slide that I have prepared for you today is a radar graph. Now, this is not the slide. I wanted to describe radar graphs and make sure everyone was comfortable before we click over to the slide. Basically, each of the little lines off the middle represents an organization. The increments on the line represent the amount of service duration on average for a client in the category. And then the colors are going to represent the different classes of service. If everyone in the room on average gave the same type of treatment as every other organization, you'd actually see a graph that looks very much like this. They'd just be one line straight to the other. It might not be at this scale. Probably you'd have fewer services and the lines would be tighter, but they'd relate pretty closely. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're actually going to animate it through time. So each time point will actually be a 30-day period. If I can find my mouse. So again, each of these is an organization. Each of these increments is a duration increment. And then each of these colors are basically the different activity class with that duration. And then as we animate here, it'll be across time. One thing that's interesting, despite the two with very high durations that skew, when we drilled in on this graph, you actually, you couldn't find a representation where providers looked equivalent on this category of clients. There we go. And I will play this one more time, and then I think I have my question period. And the animation is 130-day period, 30-day period 2. And we'd be looking for providers to have straight lines between each of the rungs for them to be equivalent service mixes in that category. So, do you have any questions? Time for it. Okay. Any questions?
So, I see hands raised already.